got to ask you the question, how close are you to making a decision on whether or not you want to be president?
Well, I'm very seriously considering running for president, and I'll make that decision this spring.
Hillary Clinton's been in the news this week regarding this private email system. Do you agree or disagree that that is appropriate or inappropriate for a public official to do?
I don't know what the rules are that govern the email, procedures on the federal level, and I'll leave that to others to explain.
What are your policies in terms of what do you like to do in Maryland in terms of making things available?
Yeah, well, our laws in Maryland are a little different than the federal in that whether you're using a private email or a public email, it's all discoverable and it's all subject to Freedom of Information Act requests. And we've complied with many of those Freedom of Information Act requests. So so it's kind of a moot question in our state at that level. Whether it's public or private, it's all subject to freedom of information.
And your personal stance on transparency?
Well, I'm in favor. I think openness and transparency are required of governing in the modern age. I mean, one of the things we did very well in the city of Baltimore and also in the state of Maryland was to measure the performance of our government. And that is to say, benchmarks for achieving reductions in greenhouse gas emissions, for job creation, for improving the achievement of our kids in schools. So openness and transparency is the wave of the future. Cities are embracing that much more quickly than a lot of states and the federal government. But it is the best elixir and it is the better way to go. So anyway, that's my opinion on that.
Do you think with everything that's happened with Hillary Clinton the last couple of weeks or so, does that give a greater opportunity for a Democratic challenger for president?
Well, I think in our party there's always a demand for new ideas and for a conversation about the challenges we face and how we can overcome them together as a people. And I think that was true of the Democratic Party when I first started coming up to New Hampshire as a college volunteer back in the 1984, and that's true of New Hampshire today. Especially in our party, there's always a tendency to believe that we are served well by new ideas and by new voices in the arena.
Do you see yourself potentially being the challenger if she decides to run?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that there's other fine people that are considering getting into this race, and they'll make that decision based on their own judgment. For my part, I believe the way this is supposed to work is that if any of us feels that we have the executive experience and the ideas that will move our country forward, we should offer that as a candidate, and then the people decide. And so that's what I'm focused on right now, is offering that better array of choices that'll make wages go up again in our country, that will allow us to give our children a better future, that'll make the American dream more secure.
Do you think your stance on immigration, should you choose to run for president, would make you competitive for the Latino vote?
Oh, I would hope that I would hope that. I mean, look beyond whether or not it makes us competitive. It's the history of our country. We're made stronger by immigration and by the ability of new Americans to work hard and to be innovators and business creators in the full light of American society. So let me take another run at that. I know we've all grown a bit cynical and we act like politicians never make a decision until they do a poll or put their finger to the wind. And part of what I would hope to offer, if I decide to do this, is a return to the politics of principle. Let's stick to the principles that made our country strong. Let's do the things that our parents and grandparents did that actually work. Let's believe again that we're the ones that make this American dream real, and let's start doing it. The politics of politics by pollster is not a good way of governing.
What will be the deciding factor for you?
Deciding factor for me? I don't know. The overarching point of clarity that I have to reach as a person is whether I feel I have a compelling vision and a better agenda to move our country forward. And if I do, then I will do it. And that's really the primary concern that I have.
Governor, do you have any?
Yeah, I'll make a decision by this spring.
Governor, do you have any concern that some of the foreign donations to the Clinton Foundation would influence her administration if she became president?
I like Hillary Clinton, and I respect Secretary Clinton, and I didn't come here to talk about Secretary Clinton. I can tell you in any of my dealings with her or with the president, they have always been decent and straight up and honest with me. And I also know for a fact that that foundation's done a lot of good work to help a lot of people that are in need around the world. And I'll leave to them to answer more specific things.
Do you feel Democrats are thirsting for an alternative in this race?
I think Democrats and, I think not only Democrats, I think all Americans are looking for an honest conversation about the reality of the challenges we face and the better choices we can make to achieve better results. I think that's why you see even in the Republican Party of today, you see new faces emerging because people want to have an honest conversation about what went wrong such that we're all working harder but falling behind, and how can we fix what's wrong with our economy. I believe that our party actually offers better choices than theirs, and I believe that their choices and their doubling down on this trickle-down economics would simply repeat the history of these last 12 years. I believe the choices that we offer to increase the minimum wage, to raise the threshold for overtime pay so that when people work harder, they are actually rewarded for it, to rein in Wall Street so that runaway gambling with our money doesn't run away and run over our national economy again. These are all of the better choices that we can offer to the American people, and I think if we do, we're going to be successful in 2016.
If a New Hampshire voter came up to you and said, "What's Governor Martin O'Malley all about?" In brief, what would you tell them?
I would say that if I were to make this race, what I would have to offer is a break with the failed policies of the past. Those things that failed to work in the Democratic Party, as well as those things that failed us, the policies that were followed by Republicans. I'm a person with executive experience that believes in a new way of governing and that actually makes the investments that allows American families to succeed.
What is your plan of action to combat the threat of ISIS should you run for president?
Well, I believe that ISIS is a real threat to our national security, and I believe that threat has changed greatly over the course of these last couple of years. And our best way to confront that threat is in coalition with other nations. I believe that's what Secretary Kerry and President Obama are seeking to do right now. There is evil in this world, and sometimes that evil grows to such a proportion that we cannot shy away from confronting it, that we have to confront it. But we are best doing that in coalition with other nations.
Are there particular issues where you would offer something different to the conversation than Hillary Clinton?
Well, I mean, there's a few. I don't know. I'm not sure what issue. I'm not sure what ideas she's proposing as part of her candidacy this year, John. But I can tell you that when it comes to reform of Wall Street, I think that we would make a mistake as a party if we held ourselves out with some sort of version of becoming Dodd-Frank light. I think we need to reinstate Glass-Steagall. I think we need to ask some very serious questions about the sort of stock buybacks that corporations are engaged in today, which was also part of that deregulation, albeit in some earlier years. So those are, I think that's a very important issue that's out there right now. I'm not sure where she stands on it, or all of the other candidates.
Two more questions.
You said that you would want to break away from the failures of Democratic and Republican policies in the past. Can you be specific about what are some of the Democratic policies that haven't worked?
Yeah, the one I just mentioned. Well, the one I just mentioned, Glass-Steagall was one of them. I think that when it comes to, I think we need to be much more clear-throated about the imperative of immigration reform. about why it's important for our country and for our country's economy and for our country's security. I think we need to make it both an economic imperative as well as a security imperative, and we cannot give up. I think sometimes we try to tap dance around the very things that define the principles of our nation, and it's what turns people off and has them sit at home instead of going out to vote. I also believe that right now, and I don't understand why we haven't done it earlier, we need to raise the threshold for overtime pay. We have had now a Democrat in the White House for 7 years, and we have not raised the threshold for time and a half for overtime pay in those 7 years, even though we don't need Congress to approve it in order to do it. Those are a couple of areas, and there's continuing work that we need to do as well on climate change and other issues.
Last question. Do you have a feeling there's any fundraising opportunities? I'm just curious with Hillary and the big name, if she's kind of swept a lot of those donors up, or if there are still opportunities to fundraise for your campaign or other challengers that might.
I'm focused on the ideas to govern. It's been my experience in running for mayor of Baltimore at a very troubled time in our city's history and governing the state of Maryland these last 8 years that you're best served and the public is best served if a campaign leads with ideas, and then the support will come, and that support will come in terms of volunteers, it'll come in terms of intellectual firepower, and it'll also come in financial support. So I'm focused at this phase on the ideas, and it's always been my experience that the other support follows a candidacy of substance.
All right, thanks guys.
Thanks everybody.
Governor,
Thanks
we
for
got
coming
it.
out.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, man.